This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. And so we're here today with one of my new favorite people, Helen Joy George. And she has so many things to tell us about. If you saw my announcement this morning, she's a writer and a photographer and a motivational speaker and a person with lived experience. So welcome, Helen Joy. We're so excited for you to be with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I am just so honored to be here. And I think this is just so cool to have this community on Wednesdays. And so, yeah, I'm just really excited to spend the next hour with y'all and talk about a little bit of my journey. And yeah, I am the author of this book, Yellow Tulips. And so I'll just kind of be talking about that book and different ways that mental health has affected my life and how people have positively impacted my life. So oh, go ahead.
I'm looking forward to hearing about that. I was gonna say to people, if you want to put questions in the chat as we go, that's fine. We'll have a period of time for it at the end. And I also want to mention at the start of the conversation that Helen Joy is our closing speaker for our conference this year. So if you like what you hear, you want to make sure and come to the conference as well. So we're excited about that too. So yeah, Helen Joy, if you'll just start. It's been really interesting. People sometimes talk about their past and themes, or I think when I first started this, I thought we would talk in great detail about the experiences that are happened to us, and that really didn't happen that way. So whatever way you feel comfortable in sharing those growing up years with us and kind of what any adverse childhood experiences you had and that you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up with a father that was bipolar, but undiagnosed bipolar. And so I had the experience of living with someone who, was really in deep depression a lot of the times, and also was also manic a lot. And it was undiagnosed, and he was frequently on antidepressants, which if you don't know much about medication, that's like a big no-no. And so he just like swung all the time. He was pretty absent in my childhood. And I also grew up with a mother who had pretty significant childhood trauma that was unresolved and not dealt with. So I kind of knew pretty soon into my cognitive abilities that I was not enough for my parents, and that I had this huge burden of trying to make everything okay, and I couldn't. And also coupled with that, pretty early on in my childhood, I knew that I was a little different, and I experienced pretty high highs and pretty low lows, and felt pretty alone in that. I'm the oldest of 7 kids, and so yeah, I just knew really early on that something was really different about me. And so when I was 13, my dad attempted suicide and is brain injured as a result of that suicide attempt. And strangely, when that happened, I felt very compassionate to him, because instead of like all my sisters kind of were like, how could he do this to us? How could he abandon us? And like, I already knew, because I had struggled with suicidal ideations, secretly in my life, but I knew that that I didn't blame him, and that I had a lot of compassion for him and empathy for him. So my childhood, was pretty much, I did have lots of good memories, and the book is half about my childhood and half about a mental breakdown that I had. And there's lots of good memories, lots of funny things that happened, sweet, endearing things. My dad he was a genius, and he built these round houses all over the United States. And we also lived in the Canary Islands off the coast of Morocco for a little while. And, just lots of adventures on that kind of front. So, but all intertwined with this was just a longing from me and a feeling of not being enough. Not just, I grew up very conservative Christian, and I just felt like I didn't fit in the box that was expected of me. I always felt like a failure. I did end up getting married very young at 19. And yeah, that was really hard and really triggered a lot. It kind of like when I got married was exactly when my bipolar kind of woke up. And it was not a good combo. And a lot of trauma happened in the early years of my marriage. And I got diagnosed bipolar. I think I was 21, and was so relieved. Oh my goodness. I was just so relieved, like, oh, there's something that can help me. But right away, after feeling good for maybe 2 months, I was like, oh, well, I'm ready to have children now. And they were like, no, you should definitely not have children. And I was like, watch me. And so proceeded to get off all medication on my own, had 3 babies, several miscarriages, and that took up a decade of my life. And I really felt pretty stable during that time. And I kind of contributed to the hormones maybe. But it was when I was, oh my gosh, I guess I was 31, when everything kind of came crashing down. And the second half of the book is about this breakdown that I had, kind of ignited by trauma in my marriage. I admitted myself into the psych ward here in Asheville, and it did not go, as a lot of you probably know. I did not realize, as just a middle class white woman, that you can't just go to the hospital and like sleep in a bed and be taken care of and nurtured for a few days till you feel better. And you don't just get medicine and it just was not like that. I thought it was going to be a very healing experience. And by the time I decided I needed to go, I just thought, oh, great, I'll go. It'll be like 4 days. I'll come back healed with medication, and I just thought that's how the story would go. And it really ended up being very traumatic. I didn't have health insurance, so I got kind of stuck for a long time and ended up not getting care, then having to go into another psych hospital, and then getting misdiagnosed. And then, it just was like a chain effect. And it really was about a year that I was in and out of treatment, in and out of hospitals. And I would say my me and them was rearranged at that point. It was really easy to look at homeless people on the street and say, well, that's them and this is me. And the line just got thinner and thinner and more blurry, to where I was them, they were me. And I really got a taste of the hopelessness that comes with that. And really the hopelessness that a lot of people feel with mental illness, because, I was thinking about it this morning when I was preparing to talk, and it really is a marathon. It is not a sprint, this mental illness journey. Some people might deal with some seasonal depression, that kind of thing. But for the most part, if you deal with mental illness, it is kind of a lifelong journey that you have. And so just my heart was very tender towards this population of people that really I feel I know is very overlooked and misunderstood. And here's the thing that I really realized: people want to help people who struggle with mental illness. They just don't know how. They don't know how to show up And like I said, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So it's not like somebody has a baby and you bring them a casserole and, you know, then everything's great 2 months later. It really can be something that you really, if you love someone who struggles with mental illness, that you have to show up over and over and over again, and it doesn't always get better. So out of necessity to survive the trauma of that experience, I started documenting on Instagram. The day that I went into the hospital, I went on Instagram and posted this picture of me donating books and drawing supplies and puzzles to the psych ward. And it was like a year ago, I was checking myself into the psych ward and I was completely helpless and hopeless. Today, I am on the outside and I'm helping people. And that was just so powerful. It took the sting away. Instead of like me wallowing in my bed that day and saying, oh my gosh, you know, a year ago I was stuck and it was horrible and all this stuff. I just kind of took hold of it. And it was so powerful to write the story out. So really every day it was like, on this day a year ago, I did this, but this day I'm climbing a mountain with my kids. And it was just really powerful. And then it just kind of morphed into this book that I think is really needed in this world. And so writing the book was incredibly healing for me. And after I was done writing it, I knew that I was writing it for people like me who struggled. But actually, more than that, it really came out that I was writing it for people who loved people like me, who want to show up, who want to know how to love somebody because it's messy, it's hard, and it really is long. And so today I really wanted to talk about how to love and be loved in this darkness of mental illness. I would say that is the number one thing that people are drawn to in my book. If somebody reads my book, they'll say, oh my gosh, I loved the part about showing up. It gave me so many ideas of how to love my aunt, cousin, sister, friend. And so I really wanted to kind of talk on that today. So I think also a number one question when people read my book is, wow, you're so lucky. You had so much support. And that is true. I have actually had a few negative reviews on Amazon by people who are like, well, of course she did great because she had all this support and I didn't have any support. So I think there's kind of this, I was lucky. I did have a community. I did have people, but I will say something that I did that a lot of people don't do is I asked for help. And I was really honest about what was going on. And that's not easy. But I would say that is, the first step to, if you do deal with depression or anxiety, that kind of stuff, being honest. If you're not honest, there's no hope for you getting support and help like you need. And so I just really feel like that is the number one step that needs to happen. And also, people who love you aren't going to know how to help you or when to help you if you don't tell them that you're hurting. So that is something that I really talk to people a lot about. Maybe there's jealousy or, anxiety about not having support at home or with friends. And a lot of times I say, well, have you told anybody that you're struggling? And a lot of people say, well, no, I don't want anybody to know. Well, nobody can step into your life. And it is scary. 100% it's scary, but 100% it's worth it, in my opinion, to have that support. So I would say one thing I wanted to talk about was pacing yourself. If you are asking for help or if you are giving help, pacing yourself is really important because, I had a dear, dear friend who just like poured herself into me and she got so burnt out, after several months, and she really had to step back, and that was pretty devastating for me. And looking back, I really wish I had not allowed her to pour herself like that, because like I said, it is this marathon. And so just being mindful of asking for help in like a paced sort of way, and maybe spreading it out from people, and also offering your help. Like, nobody who is hurting wants you to give everything and be emptied out. You want so badly to help, but in the long run, it's going to help if you like pace yourself. So um, I would say the first thing is, don't ask. I think the biggest thing that is just kind of a heartbreak, and nobody means it this way, but if I'm hurting and I'm struggling, the worst thing someone can say to me is, "Hey, just let me know if you need anything." That is like, you might as well just not have said anything, because I am almost always incapable of, and I'm pretty self-aware and pretty tuned into myself, and I just can't even form the words to say, "Hey, my kids are hungry. Hey, would you mind making a casserole and dropping it by?" So I think the most important thing with that would be to say, and I'll tell a story that I love to tell about when I first learned what the best way to do this is. I was miscarrying. I had to have a DNC, and it was really messy and hard. And I had probably 20 people, "Oh my gosh, just let me know if you need anything." And I'm thinking, I need something, but I can't even say what I need. And I just remember being hungry, and just being really tired and too weary to ask. And I just had this friend, and she just showed up at my doorstep with a pot of spaghetti. And little side note, I don't even like spaghetti, or my husband didn't like spaghetti, but it just felt so good that she didn't ask and she just showed up. And so, there's not everybody can do that, and not everybody wants that. Not everybody wants somebody just dropping by their house. But there's just different ways you can phrase it, like, "Hey, I'm bringing you dinner tonight. Let me know what you'd like." Or something that, if you don't want to even go through the hassle of if keeping something warm or cold or when to drop it off, you can drop off non-perishable snacks. And I have in my book like a whole chapter on different, like, concrete, what is the word? Yeah, just practical ways to love on people. And it's kind of like that bridge between just showing up and also asking, like, giving respect for space. And but I will say 9 times out of 10, showing up is going to be the right option. And I'm not really talking about, like, my grandmother just died and people just showed up and brought food, and that's amazing. Like, but I'm talking more about um this long view. So you're really going to be a blessing just showing up. And so also, the goal is not to fix someone. I have a whole chapter on this too. I feel like we, as Western cultured people, we just want to fix it. If somebody is having something hard going on, we're really uncomfortable. We're not comfortable with sitting with someone in grief. We're not comfortable just showing up in grief. And a lot of other cultures are really good at that, and we just are terrible at that. So, my first entrance into all this grief and help and showing up was through miscarriage. I had several miscarriages, and people would say things to me to try to fix it. "Oh, well, your baby probably was, medically abnormal, so it's such a blessing that you didn't have that baby." Okay, that is not comforting. Oh, they're with God. Well, that's not comforting to me today. It's just like people just can't stand to just stand next to you, put their hand on your back, and just say, this sucks. I'm so sorry. Because I guarantee you, I mean, I even feel this too. Somebody's grandfather dies and they post on Facebook, and I just so much want to come up with the words that will just make that pain go away. I still, even though I've written about it and know that that's not something I cannot do that. Like, I don't have the power to make someone's grief go away with my words. I still feel tempted to try to find the right words. And really, in grief and also in this long, arduous journey of mental health, there's really no words to say. And so just your presence and just being there is just, it's enough. It's totally enough, and it's transformative. In my really deep depressions, I have almost no ability to reach out. I have almost no ability to say what I need. And the few times that a friend has literally come over and I'm unbathed in my pajamas, and they just like sit next to me and watch a movie with me. Or I had a friend one time just climb into bed with me and just like held me. I mean, what a beautiful way to love somebody that can't ask for it, who doesn't know what they need, and it's without expecting anything from them, not expecting them to tell you how they're feeling, not expecting for you to heal it. Like, there's no expectation. And I would say nobody expects someone to heal their hurt, with words. So, we as a culture are kind of programmed to think that that's possible, and it's not. So if you kind of get used to the fact, like with the uncomfortableness of just sitting with someone, I mean, that is just life-changing.
Helen, Joy, let me stop just for a second. I already told you this once, but I just wanted to say that I was sorry to hear about the loss of your grandmother.
Oh, thank you.
You had mentioned that to me, and I was sorry to hear that.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it's been a journey to mourn her and celebrate her, but thank you so much.
Sure. Go ahead. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, that's fine. I did want to read, if you're kind of like, well, this is great, but I don't know, I don't want to bother somebody, how do I show up for someone who's maybe very private or who isn't as open as you? I have, like I said, a chapter in my book. And so I'm just going to read, just kind of popcorn around a few ideas. Brushing someone's hair. I mean, that's pretty intimate, so it would have to be someone you're close to, but I feel like it's a very nurturing, tender thing to do, and it's something that people who are hurting a lot don't do for themselves. Gently guide them into the sun or into the woods for free outdoor therapy. This is something that in the beginning of my journey, I really struggled with. People really, really close to me that I loved were really hurtful to me because they saw me in my deep depression and they would say, well, have you tried exercising? Have you tried vitamin D? Have you tried lavender for sleeping? Have you tried, oh, everybody, just get some sunshine, honey. You'll feel so much better. Well, have you, it's just like, and it's kind of really shaming, honestly. It's like, hey, you're causing this. Here's a list of ways you can do better. Now, does exercise help mental health? Absolutely. Does vitamin D help mental health? Absolutely. But they're like slivers of help, So it's just not helpful. It's just not helpful. If you're really close to someone and you're in their lives in and out and you're loving them, it's just better to do it with them. Hey, would you go for a walk with me? I just want to go for like a 10-minute walk. Would you walk with me? Hey, I know you're not feeling good. Can I make some tea and we go sit outside on the porch? just little ways of doing it with them instead of asking them to do it on their own. Because if you've never dealt with severe depression, it's really hard to explain. And a lot of people who are close to me who don't understand, it just boggles their mind. Well, just go exercise. You'll feel so much better. And that's just not the case. So, guiding someone into the sun, so small, so life-changing. I remember one particular friend came over, and I just, I was just in hell of darkness, and she just took me outside for 10 minutes, and it just changed everything for me. And that was such a kind thing for her. Going to somebody's window and texting them and say, hey, I'm not coming in. I just want to wave at you. I just want to say, I love you. Just going outside someone's door and texting that. The non-perishable snacks is a great way. If you don't want to get into the, hey, what are you allergic to? Can I drop off a hot meal at 6? Those are great things to do, but also take a lot of planning. So, non-perishable snacks, text, hey, just left a bag of groceries at your door. I'm thinking of you. Just so helpful. Giving them a plant I thought about putting that in there or not, but it can be a blessing or it could be kind of a burden. So it just depends on the person. But just bringing that breathing organism into the house can be just like brightening. Even if they kill it, it'll be nice for a little while. Just looking deep into their eyes and telling them how wonderful and needed they are. That's simple. And sometimes we want to give more than that. We want to just pour more than that, but that's enough. Just to say, hey, I just wanted to let you know you are so deeply loved. You are so deeply important. Like I said, watching a movie, curling up and watching a movie is just so comforting. Running an errand, picking up medicine, buying paper towels, getting their dry cleaning, replacing staples like, hey, do you need some milk? I'm at the grocery store, just to give away that's not, hey, this is a huge burden. You can just say, hey, I'm at the grocery store. Do you need milk? Do you need coffee? That kind of thing. The putting your hand on the back and not saying anything. That is just, if you take one thing away, that is the thing to take, to show up for someone. Back rubs, clean their toilet, clean anything, read. I had a sister when I was just at my very worst who read Anne of Green Gables to me out loud. And, I was having such horrific ideations going through my head all the time. And it was just so lovely. I didn't have to talk. I didn't have to think, but like her voice was so soothing. That was just a beautiful thing. So either asking for this, hey, could you read something to me? Or offering this, hey, can I read, the Bible, some poetry, whatever to someone. It's so healing. Give money. That's always, tucking money in an envelope and saying, hey, I know you're going through a really hard time. Here's $50. I just want to take your burden away. That's, or help ease your burden. That's very helpful. Honestly, hosting people at your home is such a blessing. I know it's hard with COVID. And I did write this before COVID happened, but sometimes someone who's really struggling with mental health, they want to have that community and that fellowship, but going out just feels impossible. So to have them to your home, they could come in their pajamas, maybe just say, hey, we're having a pajama dinner. Come on over, inviting someone, not just assuming, well, they're dealing with horrible depression, so they definitely aren't going to come. I just feel like inviting someone over that you love and know what well is just really healing. Lying down next to them till they fall asleep. Sending texts that don't ask questions is huge. Kind of a huge burden for me if I'm struggling is getting 10 texts from friends who are like, hey, how are you? And as well-meaning as that is, and I would still take that over nothing for sure. But it is also kind of burdensome, like, oh gosh, now I have to 10 times come up with words for this awful feeling I'm feeling. Whereas another way you can kind of check in with somebody without expecting anything back from them is just saying, I'm here, checking in, thinking about you, not questions, but just like statements are really, really, really helpful. Crying with them, buy them new pajamas. That was like such a blessing. My mom took me to Target and bought me new pajamas because I was in them a lot. So that just felt really nice. Give them a vase of wildflowers, print photographs for them of times that were happy and good. You can even just get them off Facebook. You can go through their past albums and just drag and drop and steal their photos and print out a few for them. Helping someone shower, not like showering them, but just going over this would definitely be with someone you're very intimate with, like a sister or something, but going over and just, hey, we're taking a shower right now. I got it all ready for you. Just not saying, hey, don't you think it's time for you to shower? None of that shame stuff, like showing up, taking action, being gentle, and doing it in such a loving way. So, I mean, there's tons more. And I still, through the book, a lot of people have reached out to me. Well, this reminds me of this time someone did this to me. I need to add that to my list because that's a great way to love on someone. Or, some might say, oh, I was in this horrible depression and this one friend came over and did this thing that just meant so much to me. So asking, talking, and pacing it all is so important. And let me see, I'm looking at my notes. Yeah, just definitely not shaming people like you should be doing this. This would help you. That really does not help. And I think if you struggled with depression or anything like that, you can nod your head and say, absolutely. My mom telling me I need to get in the sunshine is not what I need right now. I need food and clean clothes and maybe fresh bedding, that kind of thing.
I love all those concrete suggestions, Helen Joy. And I remember I was talking to somebody once who said, because we were talking about this, how to best show up. And she said, I call and say, I'm bringing something to your house. You can choose what you want me to bring you, or I can surprise you, but I'm bringing food there. And so it wasn't a question. She said, you don't have to see me. I can leave it on the door. It wasn't a question of whether she should come. And if you didn't have the capacity to make the choice, then she just, a bag of apples and a box of cookies. She'd bring just a bunch of different stuff. But it was that I am coming kind of, I don't need you to articulate whether you want me there or what you need. I'm coming. If you have a choice, you can make it. But whenever she told me that, I was like, oh, that's the best thing ever. Because I find myself saying, let me know if you need anything. Call me if I can do anything. And I can tell you that not one person's ever, to the hundreds of people I've said that to, nobody's ever said, this is what I need.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And if the worst thing of all is that this pot of spaghetti that I didn't even really like gets kind of wasted, it's like, that's the worst thing that happens out of, taking like a step. And I mean, that's just not bad. And I still talk about it to this day. That pot of spaghetti, it just meant so much to me. So, if the worst thing that happens is you leave snacks on the porch and they're still there a week later, that person still knows that you cared for them. And it's just important.
Someone just asked, what if the individual doesn't want anyone to show up? And I guess I'm gonna let you answer that and see what you think and see if it's what I think.
What I would say to that is they probably do want you to show up. And they just, I mean, I'm not oblivious to the fact there are personality types that, I mean, for me, people showing up, the hesitation would be like, if my house is messy, like I wouldn't want them to come into my messy house or something. But with like porch drops offs and like little text, that's not very intrusive. I mean, I hear you, Taz. I feel like finding different ways, maybe if they don't want you showing up, just even that text of, hey, I'm thinking about you. Yeah, I would say show up, and yeah, I agree, Alicia. I would say just show up anyway, because it's almost like trying to protect you. Like, oh no, I don't need that. Thank you so much, but I really want to be alone. I've said all those things, and did I mean them? No, I'm desperate for someone to show me I'm important to them, show me that my life is valuable, that that I'm worth being cared for. So I would say maybe there's a very small percentage of people who really, really, really don't want you to show up. But I would say even if they're saying they don't, that they do. And I was going to read this question. The Candace Walker. This makes
I can read it for you.
Oh.
It was a comment. This makes me think of the child management strategy of offering two positive choices for a child. When we're struggling, trying to articulate what we need is too overwhelming, but maybe choosing between, I want you to bring me a pot of soup or chicken casserole is a decision that I could handle. I remember one time we were all quarantined, and I know some people laugh when they hear this because in public I seem to be a social person, but I'm incredibly antisocial and I don't like people at my house. So we're all sick with COVID or quarantine because we're close contacts. And I am like as bitter and overwhelmed and depressed and furious as a person could be. And two pastors from a group I belong to texted and said, we're coming by. What do you need? And I said, not one thing. And they said, then we're going to bring a bunch of stuff you don't need. And so they brought like antibacterial hand soap and a candle and Oreos. It was like a whole little box of stuff. And they said, when we get here, we'll blow the horn. If you feel like seeing our faces, you can walk out on the porch. And if you don't come out, we'll leave it on the porch. So they blew the horn, and purely out of guilt and obligation, because they had done this nice thing for me, which I don't like to even think about. They blew their horn. I walked out. I was like, y'all shouldn't have done this, but thank you so much. And they were like, you deserve to have something that's like luxuries, and you're having a really hard time. And so we stayed 25 feet apart, and and it was things I would have never bought for myself, like just indulgences. It made me so happy. I had been so furious. And so I don't know if Kathy and Stephanie are on here. I don't think they are, but that was just kind of a thing about what we're talking about they really didn't leave it up to me. They went ahead and did what they thought they needed to do. And so one of the comments was, sometimes people are heavily defend their house, which that's true at our house. We have guns as well. Obviously, safety is a choice. My hope is that you're not going to say to somebody, I'm coming by whether you want me to or not, if you do not know them. And so I would offer and suggest that you only say that to people that you know well, who you feel like are safe. And besides the weapons things, when we are talking about mental illness, honestly, without joking, there may be times when it's not a good idea to go. So obviously that's your best judgment. It's a continuum from going whether they say you can go or not to today is definitely not the day we're going. We'll text today and maybe try to go tomorrow. Another person said, once after surgery, when I had two little kids at home, a friend walked in with a meal and did my dishes. I would have never asked for that, but she blessed me and I've never forgotten it.
Yeah, that is a beautiful act of love there. And it's just so uncomfortable to do that. I mean, even my own mother, she just does not take help very well. She does not take anything. I just threw a birthday party for her, and she probably asked me like 20 times, are you sure you want to throw a birthday? I'm like, Mom, let me throw a birthday party for you. So, if you're someone struggling, maybe you don't struggle now, but maybe you're going to have surgery later, or, find yourself vulnerable for a season. it's a gift to other people for you to allow them to show up for you. That's a beautiful characteristic. And I know it's a lot easier. Oh, I don't need anything. Thank you so much, but we're all good. If they're asking, they want to help, and allowing them to help is just kind of a gift to them, in a way. As long as you don't just ask and ask and ask, repeatedly. I love that test. Yeah. So, one thing too is, talking about kind of pacing yourself through loving on someone. You can even set a little reminder on your phone, like, remind me every second of the month to give a little love to Brenda or Bob or whatever. And just kind of, putting that in, so it's just going to automatically remind you. That someone shared that with me that I thought was, she had said her sister had miscarried a baby or given birth to a baby that didn't live, and she put that in her phone to remind her every year. And it was like year 12, and she still remembered every year, this anniversary. So, just using technology to remind us, that kind of thing.
Someone else said, other ways to help if someone really doesn't want you coming to their house or can't because of the living situation is using grocery delivery services, ordering things online to be delivered to their mailbox. For example, if someone is living with a family member with paranoia or dementia, that would make going to the house unfavorable. Those are good ideas too.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, Amazon is kind of the devil in a way, like they're taking over the world, but also what a blessing. My friend, the morning my grandmother died, she woke up at 2 a.m. and she said, Helen Joy's going to have a really hard week. She just felt it. She said, Helen Joy's going to have a hard week. So she ordered me like some tea and a cozy sweater and Anne of Green Gables graphic novel, and like had it sent to me. And then, 5 hours later, I texted her, my grandmother had died. Well, I didn't know about it. And I just showed up to my door and there's an Amazon package. And I mean, the love, the comfort that just flooded me. And it's so easy to do, Instacart, that's such a great tool. You can do it from your bathtub. You can just say, hey, I'm going to order $40 of groceries delivered, bam, done. It's not, we live in a world where you don't even have to go do it yourself.
Right.
And that can really make them feel less like you are burdened in a way.
We were going to talk, and we may come back to this. I wanted to hear a little bit about the people and events that change your life. I know you talked about the hospitalization and people doing kind things for you, but we may come back to that. What I really would love to hear about is, how do you stay well these days, and how do you maintain a thriving life, and some of those things.
So, staying well for me these days was leaving a really toxic marriage. That was the number one thing on my list that has really helped me stay well. I was really doing everything possible, like I was saying, exercise and vitamins and therapy and but I was in a toxic marriage that was poisoning me. So that has been the number one thing for me, is getting out of that. And I still struggle. I still have my dips, and I still have, the ups and the downs and the deep, deep feelings. And but really taking space for myself. I'm a very introverted person. So writing for me is probably my very number one coping mechanism, is writing. I just learned this thing. Have you heard of journal speak?
No.
So I journal, but I'll be honest, when I journal, I'm writing for someone to read it in 50 years and be like, oh, this amazing writer, this is her journal, and it's beautiful or whatever. But journal speak is writing 3 pages of a journal, stream of consciousness, absolute. You could be your meanest, horriblest self and write just whatever comes to your mind. And then you burn the journal at the end of the journal. And you hide the journal real good so that, your son or mother doesn't find it. But that's been really interesting, a new way that I've really, it's, I think even with social media, we just very easily kind of create our words to be a certain way to be consumed and that kind of thing. And just this has been a way for me to literally just write the deepest, darkest things of my heart. And then it feels so much lighter. So I've been doing that about 2 weeks. I mean, I journaled before, but it feels like this is like real journaling, not just, writing lovely things in a book.
Right.
So that's been really helpful. Writing, honestly, moving my body is my hardest thing. It makes such a huge difference when I do. So I got into some dance classes that I'm doing. Finding something you like. Maybe I can't stand running. I can't stand weightlifting. I can't stand gym stuff. I can't stand it. I really have a struggle with yoga. I know it's really good for you, but like being present sometimes is really hard for me. So, I've really gotten to some dance classes, and that's really like helped me move my body, and that's been really helpful. Therapy, always, I feel like I'll just be in therapy for the rest of my life, and that's okay. So I'm trying to think. Yeah, the space, just, I know I've said stuff about our culture, but our culture just really sucks at space too. Like, it's go, 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 fill every single crack of your day. And if you are having moments to just sit and think and, just be, that's wrong, or that's selfish, or you should be doing something better. And for me, just kind of getting over that hump of the bad self-talk I hear in myself when I'm like drinking a cup of tea and looking out the window and thinking about life. I really do have like a nagging, like, you should be doing the laundry, you should be whatever, but being selfish, like a good selfish, for yourself is so important. I'm really learning that. It's a hard lesson. I've grew up conservative Christian, and it's all is like, pour out everything of yourself, just be as small and as, giving as you can be. And nobody talks about, hey, it's really important to be selfish and take care of yourself. I almost feel allergic to the self-care talk. People just preach it all the time, self-care. And in my head, I'm thinking manicures, pedicures, wine, chocolate, chick flick. That's kind of what or shopping or something. And it's like, there needs to be, sitting and being is self-care. Taking a shower is self-care. Having a deep conversation with a friend is self-care.
So we talk about that all the time, actually, on here, Helen, Joy, and because I refuse to call it self-care because my brain does the $150 an hour massage luxury kind of stuff. And so I call it wellness because I'm talking about the things that if you don't do them, you will burn out, become depressed, noticing the sunrise, taking time to breathe every day, finding joy in small things. And we work with the students in the school a lot around these 3 to 5 minute things that we can do several times a day, help regulate our emotions and get our brains back on track. Because the number one thing I hear when I even dare to let self-care come out of my mouth is I don't have the time or money for that. So we've really been trying to reframe it here into wellness practices, that they can be free and short and brief and reset your brain very quickly, and that it's really critical to be well with those. Somebody asked, and I was actually going to say, we got about 5 more minutes, and so if anybody has any questions or comments, and there was a question of, what is the meaning of your title, Yellow Tulips? And your photographs are so deep entwined with natural trees. I have a spiritual connection with trees myself. So before you answer the question about yellow tulips, if you have not seen Helen Joy's pictures on her website, to me, they're a combination between like electrifying and cellular. They are the most gorgeous things I have ever witnessed in my life. They're so beautiful. So please look at them if you haven't. And so what is the meaning of your title, Yellow Tulips?
So finding a title for a book is really hard. And this, after just, I mean, it was months of just writing down awful ideas. And it really came up in my book as I was revising it and going through with edits. That it's very multi-layered, but tulips are put in the ground in the winter. They're a hopeful thing. It's all about hope, basically. And they're birthed in the spring after a season of darkness. I personally carried them as a bride, and bought them for myself as I have like a whole poem in there about, laying claim to my hope, placing yellow tulips on a table littered with breadcrumbs and Legos. It's just like every time I felt like I just can't go on, I would buy them and just be like, I have hope. This house is a mess. I'm a mess, but I have these beautiful yellow tulips. Yeah, somebody even was telling me that, like if you look at flower liturgy or whatever, that tulips mean hope. So that's really kind of where that came from.
Someone said that she's glad to rescue conversations about taking care of ourselves, our mental health, and other health hygiene from the discussion of only indulgences and luxuries. It isn't selfish because it's responsible to ourselves and the people around us. Mary is our relational care wellness person. And then she also said, thank you so much for sharing with us. I'm obsessed with trees and roots and photograph them all the time. My photos are not as beautiful as yours, though, so touching and beautiful.
Oh, thank you, Mary. And I love that. It's like responsible to ourselves. I love that. I'm gonna write that down because I do struggle with this so much, like from just being taught things growing up. But it's responsible. That's a beautiful way to put it.
And I always have to think of it when I couldn't at first think of it as taking care of myself. I thought of it as being a better person for the people I needed to take care of. And I honestly had that way for years before I can now say, oh, this. Someone said, I'm adding to my, I don't know what TBR is, to be read stack. Thank you. Thank you for sharing these tactics with us on how to be really there for those who may not ask for help. Somebody else said, can't wait to read the book. Thanks for sharing. The library is going to feature the book the month of the conference. And so I'm also hoping we might have a few copies to give away as door prizes possibly. So if you didn't hear me say at the beginning, Helen Joy is our closing guest for this, our closing speaker for the conference this year. And we are super stoked about that. Lots of thank yous. Helen Joy, I'm going to always copy and paste all the chat comments and email them to the person so you have time to sit and read them without feeling any time pressure. So lots of thank yous and can't wait to read the book. And people are going to be sure and read it. There's your Instagram.
I post a lot like on there. I kind of call it my live journal. So if you're like interested in vulnerable, raw words, mostly about my marriage lately, but pop on over there. I'd love to connect.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We'll give like one more minute for any comments or questions. Then we'll let everybody go to the bathroom, pet a dog, get a drink before your next meeting, probably at 1. So another minute. Helen Joy, is there one last thing you'd like to share with us? I said if we had time, I wanted to come back to the people and events that helped change your path for the better. Maybe just a thought on one of the most significant things that changed your path for the better. What was the most helpful in the darkest time?
That's a really hard question because I literally felt like everyone was trying to help and everyone was missing the mark. And it really was like this inner person inside of me that fought, to live when I couldn't. My therapist was what I imagine someone in the front of the battle, just like battle crier. I don't know if that's, he went above and beyond. He drove me to the hospital. He met with my mom and told her that how, she wouldn't be talking about me if I had had cancer, you know, like this was a sickness, and try to explain that, and found me help anywhere we could and called me in the hospital. So, I mean, if one person stands out, it's him, and his going above and beyond, and really not taking no for an answer, you know,
Yeah.
just constantly looking for, you know, this was a dead end, this was a dead end, keep looking. He never gave up on me. So I'm really grateful for him.
Well, we so appreciate you spending this hour with us. I knew it would be super fantastic, and it was. I will send you the chat comments for you to read when you have time to do so. Good luck with all your many projects, writing and photography and blogging and speaking. We cannot wait to see you here in May. So looking forward to that. And I'm sure I get to talk to you several times until then about details and stuff. So thank you again. I hope the rest of your day goes splendidly.
Thank y'all for having me. It's been wonderful. I'm so glad to spend this time with you.